Welcome back. Welcome back. You made Diamond K in here. Of course, the DiamondKShow.com, onfiretelevision.com. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. DL Hewley was recently on Vlad TV. You know how they have all of these interviews and they chop them up into different clips. So on this one clip, he was asked about Eddie Murphy being the stand-up comedy GOAT. And the conversation came up because Vlad was talking to DL Hewley about Cat Williams, and Cat Williams was on the show, Vlad TV programs. And when he was on there, he was talking about at one point Eddie Murphy, Delirious and Raw, being some of the best stand-ups ever. DL goes on to say that you can't be what you are not currently. So they're talking about who's the GOAT, who is the comedy GOAT on stage, stand-up comedy GOAT. And so DL Hewley was saying that you're only as good as who you are at that moment. And I have so much respect for DL Hewley. He is a top-notch comic. He's super smart. He's an activist. He is politically savvy. And I agree with him most of the time. But this time I did not agree with him. I had a problem with some of the things that he was saying. So I think that he missed the mark big time. And I wish that Vlad had pushed back a little bit with some follow-up questions. But it seemed like Vlad kind of agrees with this way of thinking. And, if you say, who is the top comic right now? And then you say, who is the GOAT of stand-up comedy? Those are two different questions completely. And you're going to get two different answers. The top, who is the top right now, means an active participant in whatever you're talking about, whether you're talking about comedy, whether you're talking about basketball, whether you're talking about football, whether you're talking about hip hop, whether you're talking about R&B, whatever you're talking about. Who is the top right now? Now, if you ask who is the GOAT, who is the greatest of all time, that does not mean that they have to be actively doing whatever it is. If you're talking about who's the comedy GOAT, they don't have to be actively on stage. But if their impact is so large that it is still a major footprint that people have not overcome, they can still be in that slot, even if they haven't dropped something for years. So they were trying to disqualify Eddie Murphy from being the GOAT because Raw and Delirious came out in the 80s. That logic is ridiculous to me. When somebody says Michael Jackson is the greatest of all time, it's about his body of work. And has anybody surpassed that body of work? It doesn't matter when it came out. Has anybody reached a higher plateau? Has anybody been more impactful than that artist or whatever you're talking about? That's what I'm saying. You can't say that Michael Jackson is not the GOAT because Thriller came out in the 80s. Anybody that says something like that, their argument is not credible. Michael Jackson is the GOAT, even though Thriller was released in 1983, because nobody has passed him. You have some great artists. You got some great R&B artists out there. I mean, Chris Brown is great. R. Kelly, Usher, The Weeknd. Now, you can say who's the top right now, and of course, Michael Jackson wouldn't be in that conversation. But you can put some of those guys, Chris Brown, R. Kelly, Usher, Weeknd, there are others. You can put those guys in the GOAT conversation, but they have not topped Michael Jackson, and he's been gone for over 10 years, right? Just like the NBA debate, right? LeBron, Michael Jordan, Kobe. LeBron's almost at the end of his career. Kobe's retired and has passed. Michael Jordan has been retired. But we don't say that Michael Jordan's not, because he's not an active player, he can't be the greatest. He can't be the GOAT because he's not playing right now. We're saying that no player has surpassed him. Now, the longer time that goes by, when you're not an active player, the likelihood of an active person in a field passing you increases, but that doesn't mean that because you're not an active participant in whatever you're talking about that you can't be the GOAT. Now let's run down this comedy list, right? The comedy GOAT to me is still Eddie Murphy. Now, let's do this. Here's my top five. Top five comedians of all time. Stand up. Me. List is subjective, obviously. My top five: Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, Martin Lawrence, Kevin Hart. That's my top five list. Now, if I extended that list to, let's say, top 10, my list: Richard Pryor, Bernie Mac, Earthquake, Cat Williams, Cedric the Entertainer. Now, of course, your list could be different than mine, but what's not debatable on a GOAT list of comedians is that the comedians who have their entire body of work to look at, and folks that are at the end or near end of their careers, are going to be on that list. Ain't gonna be some new person that just came out yesterday or last year. They're not gonna have enough skin in the game. Now, folks that are still active, like I said, they have the upper hand because they have a shot at surpassing the legends. Biggie. Now let's say this: when we look at an artist like Biggie, who's passed in 1997. 1997. He was higher on that list than Jay-Z was. But now, 25 years removed, Jay-Z sits at a different point because he's kept releasing music, and Biggie actually only had 2 studio albums. Jay-Z has had, an extensive career. But at the point when Jay-Z only had 2 albums, then, you're looking at something different. So over time, you can surpass that person. But in this instance, I don't think that any a stand-up comic has surpassed Eddie Murphy just yet. But of course, that is subjective. Legends still in the convo, obviously. But maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But definitely salute to DL Hewley, salute to Vlad TV and all the good folks over there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show. Of course, thediamondkshow.com, onfiretelevision.com. And this program is an On Fire Television production. You can get the show on demand, the WRF Radio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, of course, youtube.com/DJ Diamond K. I am here daily, 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., dropping new programs daily. You can check me out, thediamondkshow.com.